Mommy, what does bastard mean? My son asked me that in the middle of a room filled with billionaires, polished marble, and people who suddenly forgot children could hear them. I had brought Leo and Luca to the Blackwood Industries charity gala because the invitation said the company believed every gifted child deserved a future, regardless of income. For 3 weeks, I had ironed the same navy suit until the fabric shone at the elbows, filled out every scholarship form by hand, and told my twins this was just another fancy building, nothing to be afraid of. Leo held my left hand, straight-backed and serious at 5 years old, already trying to look braver than any child should have to be. Luca held my right, his small fingers sticky from the peppermint candy a kind receptionist had given him downstairs. The ballroom smelled like expensive perfume, champagne, winter roses, and alpha confidence. I kept my head down, my scent blockers hidden beneath my collar, and both boys' cuffs checked twice before we entered. We were almost at the registration table when Vivian Hart saw me. Her smile was perfect, white, and sharp enough to cut silk. 5 years had passed, but she still looked like a magazine cover brought to life. All pale gold hair, diamonds, and the kind of elegance money teaches before kindness ever has a chance. "Ethan Miller," she said, loud enough for nearby guests to turn. "I thought you left the city for good." I tightened my grip on the boy's hands. "We're only here to submit applications." Her eyes dropped to Leo and Luca. For 1 second, something ugly flashed across her face, then vanished beneath a soft laugh. "Applications? For them?" Derek Shaw, the event director, stepped beside her with a clipboard tucked under one arm. He looked at my worn cuffs, my thrift store shoes, then at the twins' matching jackets. "Blackwood scholarships are highly competitive," he said. "Family background matters." Leo's chin lifted. "We study hard." A few people chuckled. Luca moved closer to my leg. I felt his little body tremble. Vivian tilted her head. "And their father?" The room seemed to shrink around us. "That isn't relevant," I said. Derek laughed through his nose. "No father listed, no alpha sponsor, no verified lineage. So what are they exactly?" My heart slammed against my ribs. "They're children." Vivian's smile widened. "Children without a father tend to become stories people whisper about." Derek leaned down just enough to make Leo flinch. "Where I come from, there's a simpler word." Luca's eyes filled first. Leo stepped in front of him, tiny shoulders squared, but his hand was shaking in mine. "Don't talk to my brother," he said. Someone in the crowd muttered the word before Derek could. "Bastards." Soft enough to pretend it was not cruelty, loud enough for my sons to hear. Luca broke. A sob tore out of him, small and frightened, and the cheap scent blocker on his wrist cracked under the heat of his panic. A clean, cold fragrance spilled into the ballroom, cedarwood, snow, and something unmistakably Blackwood. The laughter died so quickly it felt like the air had been cut. Across the room, the elevator doors opened, and Nathaniel Blackwood stepped into his own gala. The cold alpha CEO did not move at first. He simply stood there in his black suit, silver eyes fixed on my crying son, while every face around us drained of color. Nathaniel Blackwood had built an empire on silence, and in that moment, he used it like a blade. He did not raise his voice. He did not hurry. He walked across the ballroom with the measured calm of a man who had never needed to chase anything in his life, because the world usually moved out of his way. And it did. Guests stepped back. Conversations died. Even the string quartet near the stage faltered until the only sound left was Luca's broken crying and my own heartbeat pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Nathan's silver eyes never left my sons. Not Vivian. Not Derek. Not the cameras near the scholarship banner. Just Leo standing too straight for a 5-year-old, and Luca clutching my pant leg with one hand while the scent of cedarwood and winter air trembled around him. I tried to pull both boys behind me, but Leo resisted, still guarding his brother with that stubborn little courage that made me proud and terrified at the same time. Nathan stopped 6 feet away, close enough for his alpha presence to settle over us, but not close enough to trap us. That detail hit me harder than it should have. He had always known how to control a room, but 5 years ago, on a rainy balcony above downtown Chicago, he had also known how to speak softly when the rest of the world was too loud. I hated that I remembered. Vivian recovered first. Of course she did. "Nathaniel," she said, crossing the floor with graceful concern. "I am so sorry." This little misunderstanding got out of hand before security could handle it. Nathan did not look at her. Who made the child cry? Derek's face tightened. Mr. Blackwood, with respect, this guest was not on the approved list for the donor reception. The children's paperwork was incomplete, and there were questions about their background. I asked, Nathan said, each word quiet and clear. Who made the child cry? No one answered. The silence became heavier. Lucas sniffled, pressing his wet cheek against my leg. Nathan's gaze dropped to him, and something flickered across his face so quickly I almost missed it. Recognition, confusion, and a pain too old to belong to a stranger. Ethan, he said at last. My name in his mouth made the past open under my feet. I had imagined hearing it for years, sometimes with anger, sometimes with longing, sometimes in nightmares where he took one look at the twins and turned away. I forced my voice not to shake. We are leaving. Vivian's hand caught my sleeve before I could move. That would look guilty, do you not think? Leo turned sharply. Do not touch my mommy. Nathan's eyes finally moved to Vivian's fingers on my sleeve. She let go as if the fabric had burned her. Derek tried to laugh. Children can be dramatic. No harm was meant. Nathan took one step closer, and the air changed. A child asked what that word meant, he said. That is harm. Luca looked up then, his green-gray eyes shining through tears. His lower lip trembled, but his voice came out small and clear. Mommy, why does he smell like us? Every person within 10 feet heard it. Vivian went completely still. Derek's clipboard slipped lower in his hand. Nathan looked at Luca as if the entire city had vanished around him. Then his gaze moved to Leo, to the same silver-gray eyes, the same dark lashes, the same proud little frown Nathan wore whenever he was trying not to feel. I saw the exact second suspicion became something deeper, something instinctive, something dangerous. He looked back at me, and his voice was no longer cold. It was almost unsteady. Ethan, he asked, how old are they? 5 years old. The answer was small enough to fit inside one breath and heavy enough to break everything open. I felt Leo's hand tighten around mine, and I knew he was listening, watching the adults the way children learn to do when the world has disappointed them too early. I could have lied. I could have said 4 or 6, or told Nathan it was none of his business. But Luca was still shaking against my leg, his scent exposed and frightened, and every lie in that ballroom would land on my sons before it ever touched me. They turned 5 in March, I said. Nathan's face went still in a way that frightened me more than anger would have. 5 years counted backward too easily. 5 years reached through the polished ballroom, through Vivian's diamond smile, through every year I had spent in Havenbrook folding laundry until midnight and waking before sunrise to pack peanut butter sandwiches into dinosaur lunchboxes. 5 years reached all the way back to a balcony slick with rain, to Nathan Blackwood standing alone beneath the city lights like a man who owned everything except peace. Vivian laughed softly, but it sounded thin. Nathaniel, surely you are not entertaining this. Many children have gray eyes. Many children have unusual scents. It is a crowded event. Nathan did not answer her. He looked at Luca again. My youngest had stopped crying, but tears still clung to his lashes. Nathan lowered himself slowly, not quite kneeling, not crowding him, just bringing himself closer to a child's height. What is your name? Luca hid half his face behind me. Luca. And your brother? Leo. Nathan's mouth moved like those names hurt. Leo and Luca, he repeated, carefully, as if the syllables were fragile. Leo narrowed his eyes. Are you mad at us? The question struck the room harder than any accusation could have. Nathan's expression changed. For the first time since he entered, the cold CO disappeared, and there was only an alpha looking at 2 frightened children who should never have had to ask if their existence was a problem. No, he said, voice low. Never at you. Derek shifted, desperate to reclaim control. Mr. Blackwood, we should move this discussion somewhere private before rumors begin. Nathan stood, and the cold returned. The rumors began when you allowed guests at my event to insult children. Vivian stepped closer. I was only trying to protect your reputation. That was when Leo lifted his arm to wipe Luca's cheeks with his sleeve. The cuff slipped back. Under the warm ballroom lights, the small mark on his wrist showed clearly for the first time. A dark silver starburst, almost like ink beneath the skin. I moved too late to cover it. Nathan saw. His hand tightened at his side. I knew that mark. I had stared at it for 5 years while bathing Leo, while tracing circles over his wrist to help him sleep, while telling myself it was only a birthmark and not a piece of a man who would never know him. But Nathan's reaction told me it was more than that. Across the room, an older board member inhaled sharply. "That is the Blackwood crest mark," he whispered. Vivian's perfect mask cracked. "Coincidence," she said quickly. "It has to be." Nathan turned to the security team near the entrance. "Close the doors." My blood went cold. I pulled both boys behind me. "No," his eyes returned to mine, and something like regret flashed there. "Ethan, I am not trapping you." "Then do not give orders around my children." The words came out sharper than I expected, sharp enough to make the nearest guests look away. For one suspended second, Nathan simply stared at me. Then he lifted one hand, palm open, and spoke to security without looking away. "No one touches them. No one blocks him if he chooses to leave. But no one who hurt them walks out before I know their name." Luca peeked around my coat. His tears had dried, but his little voice trembled. "Mommy, is he the man from your picture?" The ballroom vanished beneath my feet. Nathan heard it. Vivian heard it. Everyone heard it. Nathan looked at me as if the final lock inside him had just opened, and I realized the secret I had carried for 5 years was no longer hidden in my chest. It was standing beside me, holding my hands, wearing his eyes. The picture. I had forgotten about the picture until Lucas said it, and then I remembered every night he had found me sitting at the kitchen table in Havenbrook with an old photograph between my fingers. It was not even a real photograph, only a clipped image from a business magazine, folded so many times the paper had gone soft at the edges. Nathan Blackwood on the cover, standing beside a glass tower, looking untouchable and impossibly far away. I had never told the boys his name. I had only said he was someone from a long time ago, someone Mommy used to know before they were born. Leo had asked once if he was a prince. Luca had asked if he was lonely. I had said yes to both and then hidden the magazine under a bag of flour. Now Nathan was staring at me like he had heard every unanswered question my sons had ever asked. Vivian moved first, her heels clicking too loudly against the marble. "This has gone far enough," she said, her voice bright with panic disguised as authority. "A child saw a public photograph. That is hardly evidence of anything." Leo turned toward her, still holding Luca's hand. "Mommy cried when she looked at it." The words landed softly, but they stripped me bare more completely than any accusation could have. Nathan's eyes shifted to me. Whatever cold control he had been holding on to fractured at the edges. "You cried." I wanted to tell him not here, not in front of these people, not while my children were trembling beneath chandeliers that cost more than our entire apartment building. But Derek chose that moment to reach for Leo's wrist, his face tight with embarrassment and irritation. "Let me see that mark properly. If this is some kind of stunt, security needs to document it." I moved before thought. I pulled Leo behind me, so quickly my shoulder bumped the registration table. Brochures spilled across the floor like white birds. "Do not touch my son." Derek raised both hands, offended. I was not going to hurt him. Nathan stepped between us. Not fast, not dramatic, just one smooth movement that made Derek suddenly look very small. "You will not ask again." Derek swallowed. Vivian's smile vanished. The crowd had become a wall of eyes and phones, though no one dared lift a camera fully while Nathan was watching. Lucas sniffled again, his tiny face pale. Nathan looked down at him and softened his voice. "Does your wrist hurt?" Lucas shook his head. "My heart hurts." I closed my eyes for half a second because there was no defense against that. Nathan inhaled like the words had gone straight through him. Then, with the care of someone approaching a frightened animal, he removed his suit jacket and held it out to me, not the boys. "He is cold," he said quietly. I hesitated. Pride told me not to take anything from him. Fear told me everything from Blackwood came with chains. But Luca was shivering, and motherhood had burned my pride down years ago. I took the jacket and wrapped it around both boys' shoulders. The scent settled over them, cedarwood and snow, and Luca relaxed almost instantly. Nathan saw it. So did Vivian. So did every person in that room. It was the kind of proof no lawyer could argue with and no rumor could erase. My sons felt safe in his scent because some part of them had always known it. Nathan turned to the ballroom, and the silence sharpened. These children will not be questioned by staff, guests, or anyone representing my company. Vivian stepped forward, desperate now. "Nathaniel, think about what you are implying." He looked at her at last. The temperature in his gaze dropped. I am done implying. Then he turned back to Leo and Luca. He did not touch them without permission. He simply lowered himself to one knee in front of them, ignoring the stunned breath that passed through the room. I am sorry, he said. No child should be spoken to that way. Not here. Not anywhere. Leo stared at him, suspicious and brave. Are you our dad? My lungs stopped working. Nathan did not answer quickly. That was the first thing that told me he understood the weight of the word. His eyes lifted to mine, asking without taking. I could not give him permission. Not yet. Not after 5 years of fear. So Nathan looked back at Leo and said, I do not know everything yet. But I know this. You are not what they called you. Vivian whispered his name like a warning. Nathan stood, Luca's scent still wrapped around him like a truth finally surfacing, and faced the room. Anyone who repeats that word about these boys will answer to me personally. Then his gaze found mine again, quieter now, almost broken beneath the power. Ethan, please. Let me hear the truth somewhere they cannot turn it into entertainment. I should have said no. Every instinct I had learned in 5 years of running told me to take my sons, walk out of that ballroom, and disappear before the Blackwood name could wrap around us like a net. But Luca was still wrapped in Nathan's jacket. Leo was still staring at him with wounded, searching eyes, and the whole room was waiting for me to either confess or collapse. I chose neither. A private room, I said, my voice rough but steady. No Vivian. No Derek. No cameras. Nathan nodded once. Done. Vivian's face hardened. You cannot seriously allow him to dictate terms. Nathan did not even look at her. He is the only person in this room who has earned the right to set them. 10 minutes later, we were in a quiet executive lounge 2 floors above the gala, with the city spread beyond the windows in glittering lines of white and gold. A security officer waited outside. A nurse from the event medical team checked Luca's temperature and gave both boys juice boxes, then left when Leo refused to sit unless I sat first. Nathan stood near the windows, keeping distance like he was afraid one wrong step would send us running. His jacket still hung over the twins' shoulders. It looked too expensive for their small bodies, but they had stopped shivering. That hurt in a way I had no name for. 5 years ago, Nathan said quietly, you left before morning. The room tilted. I stared at the carpet, at the careful pattern of gray and blue, anything but his face. I left a note. His breath changed. What note? I laughed once, but there was no humor in it. Of course. Leo looked up from his juice box. Mommy. I brushed his hair back. It is okay, baby. But it was not okay. It had never been okay. Memory rose with the smell of rain. 5 years ago, I was 22 and working catering at a Blackwood gala because rent was due and my refrigerator held half a carton of milk and 2 apples. Nathan had been standing alone on a balcony above downtown Chicago, his tie loosened, his perfect expression cracked just enough for me to see the lonely man underneath the CEO. He had asked why I was not inside enjoying the party. I told him people like me were hired to carry trays, not enjoy chandeliers. He smiled then, small and real, and the whole city seemed to soften around us. We talked for almost an hour. About nothing important at first. The rain, the view, how every person inside wanted something from him. How I had grown up learning not to want too much because wanting made disappointment sharper. He listened like my ordinary little truths mattered. Later, when the storm worsened and the elevators stalled, we ended up in a private sitting room with backup lights glowing amber over the walls. There was no scandal in it, not the way Vivian later made it sound. There was only a frightened Omega and an exhausted Alpha caught in a night neither of us expected, holding on to tenderness because the world outside the door kept demanding we be useful instead of human. By dawn, I was ashamed of how badly I wanted to believe it meant something. So I wrote him a note on hotel stationery. I wrote that I did not want money, did not want favors, did not want to be remembered as a mistake. I wrote my phone number twice because my hand was shaking. I left it beside his watch and walked away before I could beg for a future. Nathan turned from the window slowly. I never saw it. I looked at him then. Vivian did. His eyes went cold. What did she say to you? My hand tightened around Leo's shoulder. She said men like you wake up and regret people like me. She said if I ever tried to contact you, your family would make sure I lost everything. And when I found out I was pregnant, she said the Blackwoods did not leave heirs in apartments with cracked windows. Nathan went utterly still. Luca whispered, Mommy, are we the heirs? I pulled him close before fear could reach his face. No, sweetheart. You are my sons. Nathan's voice broke the silence, low and rough. And mine, if Ethan allows me the chance to prove I deserve to say it. Nathan did not ask for forgiveness after that. Maybe that was the first reason I did not run. He did not fill the room with promises, did not reach for the boys, did not say the kind of easy things rich alphas said when they thought money could mend every broken year. He only stood there with his hands at his sides, looking at Leo and Luca like he was afraid breathing too hard might erase them. I need to verify what happened, he said finally. Not because I doubt you. Because if Vivian threatened you using my name, I need every piece of proof before she can bury it. I almost laughed. She has had 5 years to bury it. Nathan's eyes shifted to the door, where the sound of the gala below was nothing more than a faint pulse through the walls. Then I start digging under the grave. Within minutes, the quiet lounge changed. Not loud, not chaotic, but precise. Nathan made 3 calls, each one short enough that Leo whispered to Luca that Mr. Blackwood talked like a robot. Nathan heard it. For half a second, something like a smile touched his mouth, then vanished when his legal director arrived with a laptop and a face pale enough to tell me she already knew the night was no longer about donors or scholarships. Her name was Allison Grant. She spoke gently to the boys, asked if they wanted more juice, then set the computer on the coffee table. Mr. Blackwood requested archived security footage from the March Gala 5 years ago, she said. My stomach tightened. Nathan did not sit beside me. He took the chair across from us, leaving the space between my family and his power untouched. The first video was grainy, black and white, showing a hallway outside the hotel ballroom. I saw myself at 22, thinner, nervous, carrying a folded piece of hotel stationery. I watched that younger version of me pause outside Nathan's suite, place the note beside a silver watch on a side table, and walk away with one hand over his mouth like he was trying not to cry. Leo leaned against my arm. That is you, Mommy. Yes, I whispered. Then Vivian appeared on the screen. Perfect hair, perfect dress, perfect timing. She entered less than 2 minutes after I left, read the note, folded it, and slipped it into her clutch. Nathan did not move, but the room felt colder. Allison clicked to another file. A scanned financial record appeared, showing a payment of $50,000 under my name, marked private settlement. I never received that, I said. My voice sounded far away. I know, Allison replied softly. The account was opened with copied identification and closed within 48 hours. Nathan's jaw tightened. Who authorized it? Allison hesitated. The request came through Mrs. Blackwood's office. Margaret, Nathan's mother. The woman whose portrait hung in every society magazine as the elegant guardian of the Blackwood legacy. My chest ached with old fear, but underneath it was something sharper. Proof. For 5 years, I had carried shame that never belonged to me. Nathan looked at the twins, then at me. I believed you left because that was easier than believing someone close to me had made you disappear. I wanted to hate him for saying it. Instead, I hated that he sounded honest. Luca crawled onto my lap, sleepy from crying, still wrapped in Nathan's jacket. Are we in trouble? He asked. Nathan's face changed instantly. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, voice low and careful. No, you did nothing wrong. Your mother did nothing wrong. Leo studied him with narrowed eyes. Then why did everybody act like we did? Nathan swallowed. Because some adults protect their pride before they protect children. Before I could answer, Allison's phone buzzed. She checked the screen and went still. Vivian just released a statement to 2 entertainment reporters downstairs. She is claiming Ethan arrived with children of unverified parentage to pressure Mr. Blackwood during a public charity event. The room became silent. My hands went cold around Luca. Nathan stood slowly, and for the first time that night, the CEO looked every inch as dangerous as people said he was. But his voice stayed calm. Then we stopped letting her choose the story. Nathan did not take us back down to the gala right away. He understood, maybe before I did, that walking Leo and Luca into another crowd would only turn my children into evidence with little shoes and tired eyes. Instead, he had Allison call an emergency meeting in the executive conference room across the hall, the kind with frosted glass walls, a long black table, and screens built into every surface. The board members came first, pulled from the donor floor with confused faces and half-finished champagne still in their hands. Then came Margaret Blackwood, elegant in ivory, her silver hair pinned perfectly, her expression calm until she saw me sitting between my sons with Nathan's jacket still around their shoulders. Last came Vivian, carrying outrage like a designer handbag. "This is absurd," she said before the door even closed. "Nathaniel, you are giving a rumor oxygen." Nathan stood at the head of the table. He had not sat since Allison's phone buzzed. "No," he said. "I am taking it away from you." Vivian looked at the screens, then at the board members, then at me. Her smile returned, smaller and crueler. "Ethan, I do not know what you think you are gaining by involving children in adult matters, but this is not how respectable families are formed." Leo's chair scraped softly as he moved closer to me. Nathan's eyes went to him, then back to Vivian. "Do not address him again." Margaret finally spoke. "Nathaniel, be careful. The Blackwood name has survived because we do not make emotional declarations in public." "The Blackwood name survived," Nathan replied, "because people like you decided silence was cheaper than truth." Allison connected her laptop. The first screen showed the old security footage, me leaving the note, Vivian taking it. Vivian's face froze. The second screen showed the false settlement account. The third showed email records from Margaret's office, messages wrapped in polite legal language that meant one thing clearly: make the Omega disappear quietly. Margaret did not deny it. That was worse. She only folded her hands and said, "You were 27, Nathaniel." The company was unstable. Vivian's family had votes we needed. A temporary attachment to a caterer could have destroyed everything your father built. I felt Luca go very still in my lap. Nathan's voice lowered. "His name is Ethan." Margaret's gaze flicked toward the boys. "And now there are children with no confirmed status being paraded in front of investors." I stood before I knew I was moving. 5 years of swallowing fear. 5 years of counting quarters at grocery store self-checkout. 5 years of telling Leo and Luca that they were wanted even when the world had no space for them. All of it rose into my throat. "They are not status," I said. "They are not leverage. They are not a problem your family gets to solve." The room went silent. Nathan looked at me, and this time he did not step in front of me. He let my voice stand. Vivian recovered with a sharp breath. "Then prove it. If you are so certain, prove they belong here." My arms tightened around Luca. "My sons do not need to perform for you." "No," Nathan said. He reached for his cuff and slowly unbuttoned it. "They do not." He rolled back his sleeve. On the inside of his wrist, faint but visible beneath his pale skin, was the same dark silver starburst Leo carried. The board members stared. Leo's mouth opened slightly. Nathan placed his wrist on the table where everyone could see. "This is the Blackwood crest mark. It appears only in direct heirs and fades after adolescence. Mine nearly disappeared by the time I was 14. Vivian whispered, "That still does not prove anything." Nathan nodded to Allison. A sealed medical envelope appeared on the screen, dated that evening from Blackwood Medical Center, based on scent imprint swabs taken from Nathan's jacket and the boys' blockers with my written consent minutes earlier. Allison's voice was steady. "Preliminary alpha lineage probability is above 99%. Full blood confirmation will follow, but the scent imprint is conclusive enough for emergency family protection." Vivian went pale. Nathan looked at every person in the room before his gaze stopped on her. "You asked for proof because you wanted to humiliate children. I give you proof because I will never allow anyone to call my sons that word again." Vivian looked at the evidence on the screen as if staring long enough could make it vanish. For years, she had survived by shaping rooms before anyone realized they were being moved. She knew which smiles opened doors, which compliments softened enemies, which rumors could ruin an Omega before breakfast. But there was no rumor soft enough to cover a child's scent, no smile bright enough to erase the matching marks on Nathan's wrist and Leo's skin. "This is being handled emotionally," she said at last, but her voice had lost its shine. "A preliminary test taken during a chaotic event should not decide the future of an old family." Nathan's expression did not change. "You are right. It will not decide their future. Ethan will." My head lifted. I thought I had misheard him. Margaret did too, because her perfect posture stiffened. "Nathaniel, do not be reckless." Nathan turned to Allison. "Prepare immediate documents confirming Ethan Miller retains primary legal guardianship of Leo and Luca Miller. No Blackwood representative, including me, will remove, relocate, or publicly identify the children without his written consent. The room changed again, but this time it changed inside me. For 5 years, every nightmare had ended the same way. A Blackwood attorney, a polished car outside my apartment, a judge who cared more about money than bedtime stories, and my sons being taken from my arms because I had no name powerful enough to shield them. But Nathan had just placed his name beneath mine instead of over it. Vivian's face twisted. "You cannot be serious. You are giving him leverage over Blackwood heirs." "No," Nathan said. "I am acknowledging the parent who stayed." Leo looked at me, confused. "Mommy, does that mean we go home with you?" My throat closed. I pulled him against me. "Yes, baby. Always." Nathan heard the question. He closed his eyes for 1 second, and when he opened them, the pain in them was quiet and devastating. Margaret rose from her chair. "I did what was necessary. You were being trapped by a nobody with no family, no standing, no protection. He had 2 children," Nathan said. "And because of you, he had no protection from us." Margaret looked at me then, really looked, perhaps for the first time. Not as a problem, not as a stain, as the person who had carried the cost of her choices. "I assumed compensation had been accepted," she said, but the words sounded thin even to her. "You assumed because it was convenient," I replied. My voice did not shake. Luca was asleep against my chest, heavy and warm, Nathan's jacket tucked around him. Leo had one hand curled in my sleeve and the other hidden over his birthmark. I gently uncovered his wrist, not for the room, but for him. "You never have to hide this because someone else is ashamed," I whispered. His eyes searched mine. "Even if people stare?" "Especially then." Nathan looked at Allison. "Miss Hart's access to all Blackwood properties, accounts, and communications is revoked effective immediately. Mr. Shaw is terminated for misconduct at a child-focused charity event. Every staff member involved in removing, altering, or suppressing records related to Ethan Miller will be placed under independent review." Vivian stood so quickly her chair rolled back. "You are destroying years of alliance over one Omega." Nathan's voice was quiet enough to make every board member lean in. "No, I am ending years of lies for my sons." She flinched at the word sons. Maybe everyone did. I did too, but not because it sounded wrong. Because it sounded dangerously close to something I had once wanted and spent years teaching myself not to need. Nathan turned to me, not the board, not his mother, not the woman he had almost married. "Ethan, the reporters downstairs are waiting for a story. I will say only what you allow." The power to choose sat in my hands like something unfamiliar and breakable. I thought of the gala below, the whispers, the word my children had heard, the shame people tried to place on small shoulders. Then I thought of Havenbrook, our tiny kitchen, Leo's drawings on the refrigerator, Luca's socks that never matched, and the quiet life I had built from nothing. "Say they are loved," I told him. "Say they are protected. Do not say they belong to Blackwood before the world understands they belong to themselves." Nathan bowed his head once, not like a CEO accepting advice, but like a father accepting a boundary. "Then, that is what I will say." The statement Nathan gave downstairs lasted less than 2 minutes, but it changed everything. He did not say my sons were assets, heirs, or proof of anything. He stood before the same donors who had watched us be humiliated and said, "2 children were insulted at an event created to protect children. That failure belongs to my company, not to them. Leo and Luca Miller are loved, protected, and owed an apology by every adult who forgot their dignity tonight." He did not name me beyond what I allowed. He did not use the word mine. And somehow, that was the moment I began to believe him. 3 months later, Nathan came to Havenbrook in a dark car that looked ridiculous parked outside our 4-unit brick building with chipped stairs and a mailbox that stuck in winter. He did not bring cameras. He did not bring lawyers. He brought a bag of groceries, 2 dinosaur coloring books, and a nervousness so visible that Leo whispered, "He looks like he has a test." In a way, he did. He learned that Luca hated peas, but would eat broccoli if it was shaped like tiny trees. He learned Leo pretended not to like bedtime stories, then corrected every voice Nathan used for the dragon. He learned our apartment creaked when the wind came off Lake Michigan, that the heater clicked 3 times before turning on, and that my son slept best when the hallway light stayed open just an inch. He never asked them to call him Dad. He never asked me to move into the Blackwood penthouse. He simply kept showing up every Tuesday and Friday at 6 o'clock then Saturday mornings for pancakes, then parent-teacher conferences where he sat in a chair too small for his long legs and listened like finger painting was as important as a billion-dollar merger. The full blood test came back exactly as everyone already knew it would. Nathan framed nothing. He made no announcement. He handed me the envelope unopened and said, "You decide where this belongs." I put it in the same kitchen drawer as school forms, vaccine records, and Luca's missing puzzle pieces, because fatherhood, I was learning, did not live in a file. It lived in Nathan carrying a sleeping child up 3 flights of stairs without waking him, in Leo asking him how to tie a Windsor knot for career day, in Luca pressing a sticker to Nathan's laptop and Nathan leaving it there during a board meeting. Margaret wrote letters. I read some, ignored others, and allowed one supervised visit 6 months later because the boys were curious, not because she was owed forgiveness. Vivian disappeared from society pages. Derek sent a written apology that Leo used as scrap paper for a rocket ship drawing. Life did not become perfect. Some nights, I still woke afraid that happiness was only a door someone else could lock. But then I would hear Nathan in the kitchen, whispering with the boys over cereal because they were trying to surprise me with breakfast, and the fear would loosen. 1 year after the gala, Blackwood Industries held the scholarship ceremony again. This time, Leo and Luca walked in wearing matching navy blazers, their birthmarks uncovered, their heads high. When a reporter called them Blackwood heirs, Nathan placed one hand gently on each boy's shoulder and corrected him. "They are Ethan's sons first," he said. "I am blessed because he allows me to love them." Leo looked up at him, thoughtful as always. Luca simply reached for Nathan's hand. Later that night, after the boys fell asleep in the back seat with chocolate on their sleeves and medals around their necks, Nathan walked me to our apartment door. He did not ask for forever like a man signing a contract. He asked if he could keep earning tomorrow. I looked at the man I had once thought lost to lies, then at our son sleeping safely behind us, and I finally understood that the public claim had not been the ending. It had been the first step. The real love story was built afterward, in small, ordinary moments, until the cold alpha CEO, who once said they were his, learned to say something softer and truer. He was theirs.